So once you've gathered all your primary research data and your secondary market data, you need to sort of think about how you're going to go about presenting that information to maybe your board of directors or whatever. Okay, so if you're looking at quantitative data, often they're presented in graphs, charts, and then qualitative data, they're often presented in reports and things like that. Now, if you're trying to present quantitative data, numerical data, the type of things you're going to go about using are tally charts, tables, pie charts, bar graphs, and line graphs. And I will go through those in turn to kind of discuss what's good about them and a few things what's bad about them. So the first thing you might want to use is use a tally chart. Now, a tally chart might only really be appropriate when you're sort of gathering the data together. If you were to present this as a bit of information, I think it would probably come across as quite sloppy and things like that. You'd probably want to put it into a different format. So what are those kind of different formats that you could use? Well, first of all, you could present it as just simply numerical data. Now, this again shows you've sort of probably put a bit more work into it. However, and it is straightforward to understand, but I think if you were looking at that on a slide, you wouldn't be particularly happy having to read all that data. It's better to maybe have a bit more of a visual representation of the information. So what you could do is you could put it as a pie chart, and it's definitely good to show percentages. You've obviously seen a pie chart before. This is what one looks like. So this is just showing the market share for different coffee shops. This is really good. It's really sort of quite striking and shows this kind of point real clear that shop A has the biggest market share. The issue is with it, it's difficult to sort of show trends and increases. It's only really good at maybe showing a snapshot of what's going on at that certain time. What you could do is use bar charts, and again, that has a good visual representation. And what you could do is you could plot additional information on there. You could plot maybe what's happened last year on there in a different color and so on. So bar graphs can be a bit more effective in terms of showing a bit more quality and insightful information compared to pie charts. You can also use line graphs. Now, line graphs are really good at showing trends and what might happen in the future. So you can see the dotted line on that one. So this could be showing the trend of what's happened year by year. You wouldn't really use this if you were comparing different businesses, but if you look at what's going on in 2013, 2017, by carrying on that trend and that dotted line, you can maybe make a prediction of what's going to happen in the following year. Once you've gathered and sort of presented the information, which is obviously a real integral part, but the key part is to really get insights into it and then draw conclusions from it, and from that, make good quality decisions from it. So this is how you go about the whole thing. So first of all, you'd think about what the question is needing an answer. What information do we need to answer the question? What data collection method is better to collect the information? So be it a survey, an observation, focus group, whatever, secondary market research, whatever. Then go through that process. You present and analyze the data. And then we're at that stage now. We want to draw conclusions, make recommendations to answer what's happened before, which is why it's so important to set the purpose of what you're trying to find out right at the beginning. And then once you've looked at those recommendations, you're happy that you've answered that question, you can put those recommendations into action and how you're going to go about sorting those things. There are obviously sort of limitations to consider when doing just gathering market data or market research in general. You've got to really make sure that the quality of questions that you're asking are appropriate and are meeting what the purpose of the study. It's got to be real clear what you're trying to find out. And what's really important to consider is that even if you're doing primary research and you were doing, trying to get quite clear information, is as soon as you've almost done that information, it's out of date if you operate in a dynamic market. So maybe that's why technology firms don't invest too much in primary research, because it becomes out of date so quickly, and concentrate more on developing the product as opposed to their market research. Now, what the limits of primary research data, and we'll look at what the limits are of secondary research data on the next slide. Okay. Have you managed to get enough in your sample size? So obviously, if you're going to ask a survey, do some interviews, do some observations, is the sample wide enough and large enough to show a good snapshot of the types of customers that you're going to be getting? Are opinions reflective of the group of people that you are going to be trying to target? Has your questions that you've used in your surveys or whatever led to some sort of bias in the decision-making process? Limits of secondary market data. How appropriate is it for your business, really? Okay, and then really how accurate, because you've not gathered information, how accurate in fact is it? And again, it's going to be out of date it's already out of date by the time you've come to it, but maybe by the time you've actioned on it, it's even more out of date. And to be honest, it may not match what you're actually looking at anyway, and you're trying to get, a square peg to fit a round hole, or whatever the saying is. Okay, you're trying to find information to prove your point. Now, market research also have the following constraints. Okay, for a lot of businesses, and we touched upon this in the last YouTube video, that it can, it depends on your financial clout. Are you able to do this market research to get bang up to date data? Okay, because primary data is expensive, and you might have to rely upon secondary data. Have you got the time to gather this? Is your market moving along so quickly? Can you take that time to find out the information? Okay, and by the time you gather it, when are you going to action it? Because it becomes out of data so quickly. And again, how good is the data that you're gathering? Like I've said before, is it reflective of the kind of people that you're trying to sell to or target? Is the sample wide enough? Are you asking the right questions? So, there'll be probably plenty of examples out there of poor market research, and that's led to poor decision making and maybe poor product launches and things like that. Okay, so that's the end of the market research topic, and we're moving on to the 4 Ps after this.